Our next speaker is Mark Davis, IEEE member, I'm proud to say, as well as a Dell engineer at Dell Software. Mark's big data company was acquired by Dell, and he'll tell you a bit about that as he expands his talk. And this is a great segue because now we've heard some of the issues framed out, and Mark, and then following with Alex, we'll talk more from the experience of researchers who have gathered data and the issues that they see in us managing that data. So, Mark, thanks for coming.
Well, thank you very much, Jerry, and thanks for the invitation to be here. He's right. I was actually a Silicon Valley startup guy, and I was acquired by Dell. I never thought I'd work for Dell, but I do. But it's very interesting because Dell now has Dell Software Group, and we're no longer a public company, and we don't just sell laptops and servers now. We have a software group that's about 2 years old, and I have the pleasure of spending most of my time acquiring companies now at this point. I'm also a member of the IEEE Cloud Computing Initiative as a big data lead, and we're very interested in what big data means in terms of science and technology publications as well as in the industry as a whole. And I'm going to begin actually by promoting the big data hype cycle, which a lot of people are tired of at this point, I think, but from a slightly different perspective. The impact of big data in a slightly different way. Some estimates put the entire encoded human speech up until about 1900 at about 1 exabyte worth of data, which is not a whole lot. And what we see now is that we're approaching a zettabyte worth of data here as we move into the 21st century in terms of digital materials, and we see a lot more coming. The economics being called the dismal science traditionally because it's all about the dismal impact of scarcity and so forth. Various economists have talked about this for some time, and one of the ideas is that industrial revolutions are the primary way in which large-scale economic change has taken place in the United States and so forth. So industrial revolution number 1 was steam power and steam locomotion. Industrial revolution number 2 was rural electrification, communications, and sanitation. There was a time when the sanitation workers marched in the streets during the parades in New York City, and everybody cheered. And then the most recent one that most of us have lived through, all of us have lived through, and that is the World Wide Web, connectivity, these kinds of MEMX-like tools, going back to Vannevar Bush's view of the connectivity of data. And we see some of that emerging now. And so what's next, and what does big data portend? And so the dismal scientist R.J. Gordon at Northeastern, he said, well, pretty much growth is over. There's nothing left to be done in terms of growth. We've done it all. And Paul Krugman, who won a Nobel Prize for something, said, well, maybe big data is actually the next industrial revolution, in the sense that we can overcome some of the brittleness that we've traditionally seen in terms of artificial intelligence, in terms of machine intelligence. We can use data-intensive methods to try and overcome some of those limitations. And so he proposed that this is the next industrial revolution, and we're beginning to see that. We see it in things like Google's large-scale statistical machine translation system, which is based on statistical correlation between what's called parallel translations of text. And we see it in a variety of other areas moving forward in the improvements in speech recognition technologies and so forth. So it remains to be seen. A lot of people think that there's various terms for it, the Hadoop hangover, the big data hangover, and so forth. But I remain somewhat optimistic. So why do we see this kind of data? Well, we see data is being created and consumed at an increasingly rapid pace, not just in the sciences, but also in sort of our day-to-day experience and engagement with digital technologies. And these, in turn, are becoming data sets that are valuable for doing things like trying to perfect technologies that mimic human intelligence and things of that sort. Whether we're talking about patterns of RFID tag acquisition, videos that are uploaded that go beyond grumpy cats and things of that nature, emails and the patterns of connectivity that we see within those emails and things of that nature. And probably most important is that we're seeing the traditional transactional data, the traditional tabular style data being supplanted by more and more data that is of different forms. Human files, documents, images, and video, all of which then becomes the subject of potential research projects and social media as well. I see a lot of research being done on sentiment analysis and things of that nature across social media, trying to understand patterns and flows. And of course, those of you who are involved in productizing your publishing components and capabilities see this. A lot of you see this as an opportunity for being able to improve the penetration of your products in the marketplace. But then we also have lab data and field data and Internet of Things data, Fitbits, uploading data. Your shoes are apparently soon going to be talking to the web. Not my shoes, I don't think, but some of you may have shoes that talk to the web and things of that nature. So how do we see this unstructured data, the semi-structured data, and so forth being impacted in terms of sort of STM sorts of issues? And what I'm about to say, I think there's one new idea, perhaps, that wasn't covered here by my two previous speakers, but nothing really that will surprise you. So we have problems associated with challenges associated with interoperability of data, data being able to be used across different systems, whether it's the combination of medical data that's been acquired from trials with Fitbit data. We have challenges associated with access further down. We have HIPAA regulations and things of that nature that confound that in the European Union. We have even greater requirements for privacy typically than is in the United States. We have problems of persistence, and that was mentioned before. Where does the data live? How long will it be there? What can we expect in terms of data governance? Are there policies that overlay on top of that persistence for when the data goes away, when it can be safely discarded? Are there regulatory requirements associated with that data persistence? We have unique identification problems, and some of that, I think, the strides within the publishing world with DOIs and data sites and so forth have just BERMs and things like that have really improved on accessibility of that. I wish I could remember them if they were more human readable, but so be it. So we have some systems that are coming up associated with that. However, as data sets evolve, as new metadata is added, tracking the provenance and the changes that are occurring, being able to look at the whole life cycle in terms of that data governance becomes a new issue as well. And attribution, of course, that we heard discussed becomes an important part of that as well. So I promised you maybe one new thing. And so in terms of big data publishing challenges, I'll introduce two separate phrases that have been gaining in credence maybe, and that is data momentum, and that is big data is hard to move. We have grid computing. Before we talked about big data, and, for example, energy research, and the entire technology base for grid computing was just about making FTP work reliably, which a lot of people spend a lot of time on that. But big data, once it gets created, it tends to fall and live within the systems that created it. Moving it around is incredibly difficult. In fact, Amazon AWS has a service where you just simply ship them overnight, terabyte hard drives, and they will connect them and upload that data to you because using the internet is simply too slow, or any kinds of networked upload. And the second phrase, which was developed, and hard to remember his name, may come up again, is data gravity. And that is, a lot of people have talked about this, the idea that once data is created and data sets are created, then ecosystems grow up around that. And data gravity simply refers to the idea that other products and other data sets tend to go into orbit around and maybe crash and burn into the data set. But that requires that the data is at some level persistent. And so we don't see right now any good solutions to this. We do know that since we can draw some sort of speculations about this, that data momentum in turn means that we need to use compute in place technologies in order to be able to run it, which means that the tool set is generally going to migrate towards tools that run on the data in place. So we should see data and compute infrastructure joined together, which is essentially what the main introductory themes of big data technologies like Hadoop and so forth have been. And finally, metadata standards. They either don't exist, they're weak, or they're inconsistent across varied data types. The ability to interoperate with data sets is astonishingly difficult unless you're within one particular data ecosystem. One of my anecdotes is a PhD MD actually at Stanford Medical who spent all day long manipulating data pulled from NCBI, GenBank, and whole proteomics data sets. She spends her entire day, she said, just manipulating that in Excel. And she simply said, this is not what I'm supposed to be doing, but it's how I spend my day, and I wish there was a better solution. And so if we can solve that, thank you very much. If we can solve that, then, or at least make some improvements on it, then there's a lot to be gained from doing that. And so with that, I'd like to thank you. In terms of technologies, I'll leave this off, but just thank you for your time.